Welcome to the CHYE in partnership with COL Live K-Factor podcast with your host, Rabbi Yehoshua Wordy, Director of CHYE. Each week we bring you interviews with amazing Jewish entrepreneurs sharing their challenges and successes. Their stories will inspire you to make the Keli to take your business aspirations to the next level. Welcome back, everybody, to another week of the K-Factor podcast with your host, Rabbi Wordy, Director of CHYE. This week I'm honored, really just getting to know Rav Chaim, our guest today. Been very gracious to allow me to come to his beautiful offices here in New Jersey and to share his story. And I want to give a shout out to K-Factor fan Mola Schechter, who facilitated this meeting, and hope you'll all enjoy the story. So Rav Chaim, welcome to the K-Factor.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, really, I thank you very much for being so welcoming, and
No problem.
It's great. So in the classic K-Factor style, we like to hear people's journey and their story, how their business life evolved. So take us
Sure.
on that journey, how you got started. And
Okay. I graduated YU in May 2002. I had previously, the summers beforehand, worked at Merrill Lynch down in the financial district.
That was an internship?
That was an internship. I had actually, just to give you, it gives you insight as to where I was at the time. It was junior year in YU, and I had worked the summer before in the Merrill Lynch brokerage department, and I hated it. I couldn't stand it. It was not a great environment, and I just didn't see myself doing it. But being there, I had access to my computer, and I had access to everybody's email in Merrill Lynch. So I wrote down all the email addresses of the CFOs and the CEOs and all those guys and the heads of departments, and I asked them if they would like to do the junior year mentoring program with me. That program didn't exist. And then I just had reached out to these guys, and one of them sent an email back saying that I travel a lot to China. I'm not good, but I CC'd our head of legal. He sits on all the boards. He'd be happy to do it. So our mentoring program took place. Every week we would go out to lunch. We would talk about different things. And when it came for the summer, he kept on telling me, "Don't worry, I have something for you this summer. Don't worry, don't worry." We ended up getting to it was already like May, and I'm like, okay, now I'm a little worried. What am I doing for the summer?
Right.
I gave up everything else. He had set up a program for me in Merrill Lynch that was the private equity fund. The private equity fund was designed to really take everybody away from leaving Merrill Lynch, because it was a .com era, and everyone was going to do these .coms. So they wanted to, what they did was they said, stay here at Merrill Lynch, you'll make your money like you've always been making. We'll invest it in all these .coms for you. So they were investing in all these different companies. This was the summer of 2001. And I ended up working for them, being their only intern. But they had invested, all the people who were investing were like the big dogs in Merrill Lynch. It was all their money. So they would meet with them constantly, and I was sat right next to, I think it was Stan O'Neill at the time. I was sitting next to him in a board meeting. He looks at me, he's like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm the intern." And it's like we ended up started talking, and I had a choice of going at that point, because that's when if you were there for the summer, you were able to get the job at Merrill Lynch. So I had met with the head of research for lunch and the head of investment banking and all these different things. I had chosen, I wanted to do investment banking. It was the closest to what I really liked doing.
That's great.
So I had an accepted offer. We were going to do investment banking. And then September 11th, 2001 happened. That was literally a couple weeks after I stopped working there. And anyone I knew was either laid off or not alive. And it really shook things up. Merrill Lynch
They had
rescinded.
offices. They had offices in
Yes, my
Howard.
office was not in the World Trade Center, but they had offices there, I believe. I mean, a lot of people were just, you couldn't get in touch with anybody. It was like a lot of people were laid off, and Merrill Lynch went on a entire freeze. They rescinded all offers, and I had nothing. So I had no idea what to do. And as the year went by, I ended up getting interested in real estate. A chavrusa of mine was doing it, just jumped right into it in Newark and East Orange, New Jersey. He was doing well with it, and to quote him, I'm not going to say who his name is, but to quote him saying, "I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm making money." So I ended up looking into it, and I didn't go right into real estate, as everyone thinks, buying a building and then all of a sudden making a lot of money. I ended up, a neighbor of mine that has a very big consulting firm that everyone in real estate should use is New York Water Management. And he took me in and gave me a job. And the company was in its, it was already established, but it was in its younger years. And we built different programs for different landlords of saving on their water bills, tax bills, and they still do that today. And I have a lot of akar satov to everyone there. And we ended up starting to buy real estate together. They had, back in 2002 and 2003, you could still find, in the early 2000s, there's still a lot of vacant buildings, distressed properties. It wasn't like it is today where it's very hard to find that stuff. But there's a lot of distressed deals that specifically the city of New York had, meaning that they didn't own it. Anything they owned would go to like a third party, usually a non-for-profit. But we ended up creating a little bit of a niche for ourselves within a certain market. A client of ours had asked us to reduce their water. They were buying a building. It was just the deed pretty much, and they were assuming all these high taxes and high water bills. We ended up being able to reduce his water bill significantly, and it made it an incredible deal. So we sat around one night discussing, saying, why don't we just try to do this ourselves? And they looked at me as being the youngest one in the group. I was probably 22, 23. And they said, okay, go for it, see what you could bring. So it was a lot of work in the beginning, just to understand, first of all, understand the programs. Understand what, you have to talk, as they say, you got to talk the sprach. You got to be able to go out there and understand what you're talking about, and understand what to talk to an owner who's owned this property for 20 years, but he's got problems. He's a lot older than you, and you have to really show that you know what you're talking about in order to gain some respect. We can get back into that later, but basically that's where we really started, and we bought probably over a 2002 to a 5-year period, I would say. We bought around 18, 19 buildings that way. And then we decided that, at that point, these were, deals that we've done with the city, certain different ways, but we owned the properties. They were, very, very good deals. And we ended up then going and we had purchased a mortgage. We had purchased a building that had a mortgage, and we worked out the mortgage with the mortgage holder, and the mortgage holder then had a bunch of other properties. This was around 2007, 2006, and we ended up really buying a lot of properties in the Bronx from him. We were not set up. This is one of the downfalls. We were not set up at that point to take over that many units, either with a business to do that or financially to do that. Had we kept those buildings today, they, for what we bought them for, I wouldn't be here today. I'd probably be retired somewhere. But they ended up going through a whole foreclosure process, and I was at the forefront of that. I was probably 27 and 28, going through heavy, a lot of foreclosure after foreclosure.
So what would you say, just if I could pause you for a second,
Sure.
in other words, looking back at that moment and that critical decision, what could have happened that would have helped you have avoided going through that type of situation?
Looking back today, I would have not. I would not tell you that I wouldn't have done. I would do the same deal today, but it has to be capitalized right, and then it has to be with the right group behind you.
Mm-hmm.
We were not capitalized right at the time. The buildings probably, you're talking about, it was around 30 buildings in the Bronx. They probably needed $4 or $5 million to get them back up and running, get everything paid off, and really have enough in the bank to be able to make it. That's exact. I would do the same deal again today, no question. Just have everything lined up with a real clear game plan as to how to do it. We were more focused on getting the great deal than we were on, now that we got the great deal, how do we execute on it? And that's really what we've learned from now.
Right. Okay, so you went through this foreclosure process.
So we went through this foreclosure process, and we ended up learning a lot. Personally, it was a very eye-opening situation, because we had gone from, quote, the golden boys of certain banks, which I'm not naming, but to persona non grata.
Oh yeah.
And we had been. Had we been able to save it, we would have. We just didn't. We ended up working it out, that we got that nobody lost, meaning that we were able, not nobody, but we lost a lot of money, but we were able to work it out that a lot of vendors got paid what they needed to get paid. We ended up, working it out with the bank, and but we didn't have ownership at the end of the day. But we were able to work it out in as much of a menschlich manner as we could. But it was the experiences that I had learned from that. Is something that I thank God that I learned at that young age, because I heard from a lot of older guys. I had talked to a lot of guys in their 50s and 60s at the time that had gone through this more later on in their life than I was going on, and they said they wish they had not that they hadn't gone through it. They were happy they had gone through it, because it taught them something that they're able to take their business to the next level all the way through the rest of their life. But they wish they learned it at the age that I learned it.
So share with us then, what are some of those things that you learned through that
nothing
experience?
Nothing just happens. Hashem really lines out the derech for you, and you just have to do everything in the right, slowly, methodically, and really understand what you're, and understand. You have to learn and understand everything from everybody, and be able to. There's meetings that we would sit in, and one person would say we were constantly having phone calls and meetings and trying to salvage it. How do we do it? So you had to learn how to glean certain things from certain people and try to put together a plan from 50 different people, but with one thing from here, one thing from there, and really put it all together. And nothing just happened. Like, I met so many people along the way that would give me one piece of information that I was missing and say, oh, it clicked. That's how you do it. And that was Hashem sending this one guy here.
Right.
But it really brought me back religiously also. Like, I was religious and I was from, but I was more by, right. Going to shul in the morning, learning occasionally here and there, Shabbos, this, that. But when you have, banks calling you every second, there's nothing in the world like Shabbos. When your phone's off and no one can call you, and it's the weekend, and it's weekend by them too, and it's like it shuts down. And then you really appreciate Shabbos when you have tough times financially. When you're going through and you're scrambling for things, you end up really reaching out and saying, okay, what did I do wrong? And you go look back and you see, like, what, maybe over here I didn't act the right way, and you end up making amends, and you end up going through certain things. It changes you as a person, and it's really to teach you a lesson and to really be able to shape you for the future. Because if you don't learn that lesson, it's going to happen again. Something's going to happen again, and just to learn that lesson. That's all life's about.
Right. Okay.
And at that point, I had met with my current partner. We were doing consulting work at the time, and we decided to do more consulting work together. And then about probably 6-7 years ago, we decided to get back into real estate. We said, you know what, let's try to buy a building again. And I reached out, and I'm the one that usually finds the deals and sources the deals, and he's the one that gets the financing for the deals and works on raising the money. But we took it slow, and we bought our first building, and it was a good deal, and we still have it, and we're working it. And then investors started coming up to us and say, all right, let's go for a second one, let's go for a third one. And we ended up have a bunch of buildings that we own and manage now. We got into a new sector of real estate as well, which is triple net leasing, like buying certain facilities that we will then lease. Just go out and find an operator to lease it back to them. And thank God, the Har is going well, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That's
right, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
So let me ask you like this. I know that there's a strong, the Jewish community, by our estimation, we've never done official, legitimate studies, and I guess I'm referring to the communities that I know in Borough Park and Flatbush and Crown Heights and Williamsburg. Real estate is the number 2 industry by numbers. Our estimation is that the biggest industry where there's physically people involved in is e-commerce. All the people that are selling and all of the ancillary people that are involved with that. And then the next big industry in the Jewish community is real estate. We really tremendous involvement there on the broker side and on as investors. And we've come across many young people in their mid-20s that are fascinated, and they want to get into their first. They want to find something, they want to buy something, they want to get into this world. What wisdom would you share? If you were sitting across the table from a few people, going back and
you're going to look at 150 deals, and maybe one of them will make sense. It's a lot of work in the beginning, just to get to know the market. Now it's you could show me a deal in New York City, and I can, in the 5 boroughs, 4 boroughs, not Staten Island, but you could look at those at New York City, and I can be able to look at a deal and tell you pretty quickly whether it will work for us or not, or what I could do with it, and I know what to do it. But that's like any business. That's with experience. So how do you get experience? You get experience by just talking to people. You look at deals. You talk to the brokers, and you have to understand why they think it's a good deal and this and that. And then you have to discount it by a lot. And then you have to go and drive by the building, talk to the people outside the building, getting an idea of what's going on in the building. Walk through the building with the brokers if you're that serious, and get an idea of what an apartment looks like and what to do and what needs to happen. I would take someone who's a little more experienced that you would know in the industry with you, and at least for the first time, to point out things that may not come across. But it's really just getting in and talking to people and understanding it. And there's a lot of guys that started out buying smaller deals, 3 families, 6 families, and they still do it today. If they find a good deal, they'll do it. But then they go on and they realize that the same time and effort can be put into buying a 25, 30, 50, 60 and up family.
Right.
And this way, your apartment building, you're able to look at it and make a lot more money that way than you were on the smaller deals. But you have to start somewhere. I would start somewhere where you're able to really get your hands dirty and really, understand the boiler in the basement, understand when it's not working, why isn't it working? Because you got to meet the boiler tech out there. You got to meet all the different plumbers and this and that, and to understand how the building works. I would then go and once you have the building, talking to the tenants is a key thing. Understanding your tenants, understanding what they need, what they are. Not their enemy, but I take a different approach. Is try to be more of a friend and try to understand where it's at. Obviously, I'm not going to get myself, let myself be walked all over. But as long as you give each other a chance, and then they have a respect for you, and they give you a chance. They're not just calling the city every second. And you'll always have the people that do, but you'll have majority of the people hopefully satisfied. And then you need to work the building, and then do the thing that real estate does.
Tell me something. Have you had? Is there someone that you look up to in business that that's been a guide to you? Have you found that as a pathway for yourself? Or?
Along the way, yes. There's definitely, when I started out, as I mentioned, I was at New York Water Management for a while. I looked up very much to Mark Schwartz, still do, but he's more of a good friend now than a mentor. I think he definitely mentored me in the beginning, and I think we sort of grew together, in certain stages. But now I look up to various people, but I don't think that there's right now a guiding light as to I go to for every deal.
Has there ever been any particular business book that's been an eye opener or
no,
something?
No, everything's been on the street. I haven't read a book that's really given me like a real clear perspective on real estate, at least. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of you have to be savvy. It's a lot of deal making, and it's a lot of understanding and give and take. Especially there's deal making with tenants. Right. There's deal making when you're buying the building. There's deal making when you're refinancing the building, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
You need to build it up slowly, and you buy your first building. You buy your first, let's say, smaller one. You either renovate something. There has to be a play. That's what we always look at. What's the play on it?
Right. Is
the play going to be that it's got, let's just say, 6 units and 3 come vacant? So I know I have to renovate them, what I can put into it, and what I can get back on rent, and then maybe refinance, or then go sell it to the market. Now I think there's going to be more of an opportunity for younger guys to get in.
What do you mean by that?
Because I think the market's was very hot for a while. I think it took a step back, and I'm seeing a lot of the same deals out there. Mm-hmm. So that usually indicates that the sellers aren't getting their pricing, and maybe they're coming to a more realistic pricing, or they would come to more realistic pricing if someone came to the table. I don't know too much about with the 3 families I've never purchased. 6 was our lowest. Mm-hmm. But I would say that will be opportunity. You just have to be patient and try to find the first right deal for you.
What's if someone was getting in and wanted to like sort of apprentice, what's like a best entry type of position that someone could take to get a window into seeing these types of things?
Manager. You need a little bit. Most guys are not willing to take someone with 0 experience. Mm-hmm. But if someone is willing to put in the time, managers are always overworked and underpaid. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say underpaid, but they're always overworked. There's always something going on. You have your day planned, and then there's 3 emergencies that happen, and there went your day. I would always suggest, if you're a young guy and you're able to go out in the summer or something, to be able to work with a manager. Maybe not necessarily get paid. Maybe get paid something small, however you work it out. But just to tail the guy, be there like as his assistant, you'll really see how real estate gets done. Mm-hmm. Because that's really working from the not just sitting behind a computer running numbers of what if scenarios.
Right.
That's actually executing on a business plan.
Right.
So if you are able to do that, then you'll be able to learn the building. You'll get a list of people who to call in emergencies.
Right.
And you'll be able to feel confident that you'll be able to go into that. Now, if you went into a management position and you had an idea for yourself that I want to do management for 2 years, 3 years, and that will really, really teach you it. And then you can go out and find that guy that is a partner that really can sit behind a desk and put together the deals, and you execute on the deals.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a good partnership.
Nice. Is there any particular story of Hashgacha Pratis or Kiddush Hashem that comes to mind throughout your years of business that you're proud of? Or
yeah, there's a building that we bought on the outskirts of Crown Heights pretty recently, within the last 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was the mother and father had owned this building for 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, during the contract period, the father had passed away.
Mm.
So it was just the mother and son that had showed up at the closing, and their attorney made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Made a mistake to the tune of over $350,000.
Oh.
That was, they had no clue what was flying, but they were trusting him, like you should. You should trust your attorney. And he just made a mathematical error that we would have walked away from the closing and no one would have known about.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even know at the time, and my attorney pulls me outside with my partner and says to us, I think he made a mistake because we have more money here. So we went over the numbers ourselves, and I saw that he made a $350,000 mistake.
Mm.
So my attorney says, "Listen, you want to bring this up or not?" I said, "There's no question." I said, "It's not our money." I said, "We're not going to have any hatzlacha with the building if we go into it from the second we own it, literally."
Right.
That do it. I'm going to go walk in there and tell them they made a mistake for $350,000. I mean, their faces, they were shocked that we said anything.
Uh-huh.
And to this day, I just saw that attorney in court. He was representing a tenant of mine, actually.
Uh-huh.
And he came over to me, and I went over to him, and I said, I heard you're the other attorney. So I reminded him who we were. So he looked at this client. He says, "You don't have to worry. You're going to get a very fair deal." He goes, "We're going to work it all out." And he goes, "This guy's, you don't know what this guy did."
Uh-huh.
So that's you saw that later on. It made a tremendous Kiddush Hashem and a Rosham on him that he was able to see that from guys who are able to keep it real.
That's nice. That's beautiful. Is there any particular Torah teaching that gives you inspiration for your business?
When I was down and out, as I say, I was learning a lot of Sfas Emes talked to me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to read into his words a tremendous amount of emunah, and it was able to really give me a real spark every time I would learn it, and
Mm-hmm.
really feel that okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
We'll get out of it, and Baruch Hashem, we did.
That's great. For a few final questions here. For every person that's involved in business, you can't be 100% business. There's got to be something that you do on the side to keep your equilibrium. So what's your side passion?
Passion? It's really my kids. I have 4 boys. The oldest is very into hockey, and he plays hockey, and the second one plays basketball very well, and my younger 2 twins play basketball and hockey.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of practicing, honing in on the skills. I like to hang out with my wife. We like to just go out, hang out. learn. I set up a lot of chavrusas, something that I didn't have before, but I realized was very key to any success going forward. Morning seder, night seder.
Speak a little bit about that's one of our classic questions, work-life balance. How do you juggle running a successful business, a busy family, and the learning? How does that all come together?
Okay, so a very smart man once said to me, his name is Roberto Scherer. He actually works with us. He's my partner's father-in-law. That success comes from the home. And I used to work beforehand, used to work a lot of late hours. And I used to think in my mind that was what would bring the success. I later learned, and after a lot of discussions with him, is maybe we just let's call it a day, 5, 6 o'clock, 6:30. Sometimes you have late meetings or whatever it may be, but not on an everyday basis till Adalos Shachar.
Right.
And we would. I go home and spend time with the kids. Go to make sure to try to eat with them depending on their schedules. But be home for the homework. Be home for all those items, and you can always pick up a little work later on if you have to answer an emails or whatever it may be. But not to make this the keva and everything else the arai.
Right.
Make the home and learning the keva and this the arai, as much as possible. But they have, when it comes to the learning, I saw that there's not really much. If you're going to go to a 8 o'clock chakras or something, it's not gonna work. That you're going to be in. If you want to go and learn afterwards, you're going to be at work by 11 o'clock and half the day's gone. So I started training myself to get up very early. So I would get up at around 4:30. Still do.
Wow.
And have chavrusa before Vasikin or after Vasikin, depending on the time of the year. And then, be in the office hopefully by, my goal is anywhere between 8:30 and 9. And then I have a chavrusa at night that I learn with, we learn at night, either in Muncie by him or here in Bergenfield, depending on the day. And that's usually for an hour. And depending on the night, we used to be going from like 8 to 9, but now we started doing a little earlier because he also has to be home and I also be home, so it's easier to do it a little earlier. Sometimes even we do it in the office here before I leave, depending on the day, depending on the time.
Right.
But that's something I didn't have originally, and that's a lesson that I learned is needed tremendously, and it's something that I would recommend anybody from day one is to set up, chavrusa or chavrusas, whatever you can, that really will keep you focused.
Nice. That's awesome. Thank you very much. This has really been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing, and continued hatzlacha, and everyone listening, have a wonderful week. Michael El Choyel.
Thank you for listening to the CHYE in partnership with COL Live K-Factor podcast with your host, Rabbi Yehoshua Wordy. We look forward to bringing you more amazing entrepreneurs to share their stories. See you next week.